Guys, we got a kind of a good episode for you today. I'm not going to get into all the politics and stuff. I'm just going to say that ahead of time. The only thing I will touch on is, because I promised I would, um, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. Like, those are two really bad candidates, and I think I can't remember if I talked about that the other day, but it's like, for you to lose to Raphael Warnock and David Ossoff, it's a joke. I mean, I kind of knew it was coming. I figured everything that was happening, from November on was kind of pointing to the fact that whatever could go wrong for the Republicans and Trump would. So I kind of guessed that they were going to lose it without getting too much into it. But boy, you run two terrible candidates out there with the Senate on the line. That's your fault. I mean, that's honestly your fault. First of all, you have David Perdue, which is the biggest swamp creature out there. The guy will tell you whatever he wants to hear. Whenever they were talking about checks for, relief checks for people, he was the biggest adamant guy who said no relief checks. There's no reason to send that off, which is ironic because the guy is like a billionaire, right? So it's not exactly identifying with your people. It's like Senator Gracchus in Gladiator. He says, I'm not a man of the people, but I am a man for the people. Totally not the guy. And then as soon as the runoff comes along and Trump says $2,000 checks, he's like, oh, yeah, I think we should definitely get checks out there. I mean, what a total slime ball. Then you get Kelly Loeffler, who, when all the stocks crashed, she got busted because she didn't sell all her portfolio. She didn't sell little things. She just sold all the stocks that I buy now, right? So she sold oil, she sold hospitality, she sold entertainment, and she sold travel. And she made a ridiculous amount of money. And it was right after a classified Senate intelligence briefing. So don't go tell me that she didn't know about it, because she totally did, and she got busted. And you can't sit here and do that in this type of environment and then expect people to all of a sudden come out and vote for you. So I'm not altogether shocked that she lost. But the sad part is, and this is on them, on those two and on the Republicans, is you lost to Raphael Warnock, who's literally caught on police body cam footage, basically having his wife accuse him of domestic violence. I mean, this is the guy you're doing. This is the guy who said you can't be in the military and serve God at the same time. I mean, this guy said every inflammatory thing in the world you can imagine. The guy is a total slimeball, total jerk of a person. And, he just has that face where he looks like a politician. And then you have David Ossoff, who he had one government job, and that was, I forget what they call it. It was like a communications liaison or something. But it basically is a guy who answers the phone and returns mail. And that's it. And they say it's the lowest paying job in government. It's literally one step up over an intern. And this guy is a trust fund baby. So this guy gets in, has no experience, doesn't know what he's doing. I've met people like him before. You just don't want to ever be around him. And you definitely don't want to trust your money or anything important to them. I worked with this one guy coming out of college, and it was the same thing. We had a fine can, and so anytime you cursed in the office or said a word that we didn't want you to use, so like, for example, we wouldn't say contract, we would say agreement. We wouldn't say discount, we would say reduction or something like that. If you said a word that we didn't want you saying, then you had to put a fine in the can. Well, this dude put so much money in that can within a matter of couple months, that we took our entire office to this one restaurant, really upscale restaurant, had drinks, appetizers, entree, dessert, and left a 30% tip and still had money left over. And the thing about it is that it was pretty much all his money. And this guy was a trust fund baby. He used to tell us he had his maid made him lunch every day. This guy just didn't care. He didn't care at all. He didn't identify with anybody. He had kind of an FU attitude to the whole world, and he just didn't care. And this is the person who John Ossoff is, and they lost to him. So I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an equal opportunity flamer, throwing flames at people. And so you lost to him, you suck. If you lose to the swamp creature, David, if you lose to Raphael Warnock, who got busted beating his wife, that's you. You suck. So with that being said, the market, one of the reason the market was going up, even during the riots, was the storming of the Capitol, which I think is the greatest name ever, is because they had just voted to certify the Electoral College, which means there's no uncertainty left. And so you start to see the market go up and up and up. And so even when the craziness was happening, it's going up and up and up. And the same thing happened today. It was going basically over the last week. It was going up, up, up. This is kind of when we saw everything going up, up, up. And then today it went down mainly because the jobs report was down. And it's basically because California and New York, amongst other big states, had locked down everybody. And so, it overreacted down and it popped back up. So, but with that being said, we should be, if we're looking at it from a street smarts perspective, we should be expecting this to continue to go up because we have less uncertainty, less things for people to irrationally worry about. So when we go to look at the stocks, we're going to take a look at it. And what do they say? Well, first of all, they say that the stocks rebound as Biden calls for more stimulus. And he gave a press conference today where he basically just said as soon as we get signed in to office, we're gonna start putting, I think he said significant legislation, but he's talked about more stimulus. One of them was like $1 trillion. And considering that they pretty much have the whole Senate, and I mean, it's 50-50 tie, but they have the whole Senate for the most part, outside of Joe Manchin in West Virginia, who is a very close, he's kind of a Republican who calls himself a Democrat. They're going to get everything passed. So whatever he wants to do, they're going to do. If he says more stimulus, they're going to get more stimulus. What they're not going to get, and Joe Manchin's already said this, is the crazy stuff like filibustering and adding states and things like that, because he's not going to do that. Court packing. So you're going to see more stimulus. More stimulus equals more money for Wall Street. Joe Biden is a Wall Street swamp creature. That's who he is. He's beholden to them. He's bought off by them. And so when he says stimulus, it means more money for Wall Street. And guess what we are talking about? Investments. So that is definitely good news for us. So taking it from a position of just street smarts alone, if somebody says we're gonna throw more money in your bank account, well, it's coming. So that's a great sign overall, and we see the market going forward. From there, he talked about a little bit more about with checks for the people. So that's good. That's actually more discretionary income. That would be money that you see people traveling with or going to SeaWorld or Disneyland or Grand Ole Opry, things like that. And so that actually is helping things out with that regard. Now, it's going to blow our budget out, and at some point in time, the budget's just going to, the deficit's just going to get destroyed, and God knows what's going to happen. But that's kind of what we see happening here. So with that being said, we take a look at this and it went down, and immediately once it went down, the question is what happens when it goes down all the way? Well, its immediate gut response is to go back up, which means basically you have a trend line that goes right around here, which is relatively flat. So you have this drop is really the main drop, and then you basically have a parallel trend line, but it's even going up a little bit. So let's take a look over the last couple of days at how stocks have done, and that is something totally different. All right, so let's move minus that. All right. So with that being said, we have our tabs for kind of changes in value over the last 2 days. So we look at American Airlines. Actually, let's take a look at it today. So movement today, the biggest drops have been, and they aren't really huge drops, Ellis Gaming, which is always very volatile, Bitcoin, which is somewhat volatile, NXTD, which is Next ID, which has been volatile lately, and PBF, had a little bit of a tough day. But overall, kind of everything's within the standard deviation of how we see things. And then our biggest gainers, Hall of Fame Resorts, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and Ryland Properties, which definitely went up when you talk about, because they do like hotels and casinos and things like that. That went up. So when we look at 2 days, when we want to get a little bit bigger look on kind of where things are at, biggest loser is American Airlines, but they're not there for the 1 day because they had a good day today. Let's see, PLCE, that's the mall store, and that one dropped 6% today. But then let's see where that one is for the 1 day. See, what did they do? They dropped 2% today. So they're just not, they went down a little bit today, but they're not all the way down. So let's see, nothing huge that really dropped down there. We did talk about the Hall of Fame Resorts. And then for the big 2 day gainer, Hall of Fame Resorts went up 34%. Now I'm kind of annoyed at this because I actually went and looked at this, I had it at about 133. It was just hovering there doing nothing, and I sold it. So I figure I'll reinvest the money into something else. And at some point, it just decided to pop. So it went up 35% in the matter of 2 days. So I actually put this on a list on kind of, I'm not going to do a limit buy now because I'm not going to buy it after it went up. But I have it here just as a reminder that if it drops down again, I'm going to buy this. And the reason it's important, just from a big picture kind of street smarts perspective, is that it's a Hall of Fame resort. It's the football Hall of Fame. And right now the playoffs are going on. Football is kind of the main thing that's front and center. Ohio's relatively open for the most part. And you're basically coming in and looking at people that are going to have, money coming in from the government. I just hate the sound of that, by the way. And Canton, Ohio, if you're anywhere near Pittsburgh or Cleveland or Detroit or Indianapolis or even Philadelphia, Tennessee, Kentucky, things like that, the Football Hall of Fame is really not that far away. So that's something that I see is going to do really well, and I definitely want to buy it. I just want to see it dip a little bit before I actually buy it, because I want to have somebody eat some of that profit that they took today. Beyond that, some big picture ones that we looked at. Tesla's been going up today, and I think when we look at Biden with the Democrats' perspective for EV and trying to get rid of fossil fuels, anything electric car based is going to do really well, and Tesla has been awesome. So we bought this at $600, and it's now sitting here at $875. So it's definitely doing really, really well. We're also going to look at things like Blink Charging, who we bought at $23.84. It's sitting at $43.94. So definitely moving up in the right direction. We should expect to see things like that. So as we look at our holdings, one of the things that's really cool, and I still don't get this, our big winner is Signet Jewelers. Now, if you'd told me back in March that this would be, we're getting ready to sextuple our return on this and it'd be my number one buyer, I wouldn't believe you, but it is. Beyond that, we're starting to see a lot of things in triple digits here, which means we've doubled our money. We see things like PVAC has tripled. Redwood Trust has tripled. Let's take a look here. Every is about close to being tripled. Caesars Entertainment is about to be quintupled. Crestwood Equity is about to be quadrupled. And so overall, we're doing really well. 88% gain on what we currently have. We're at 223% gain, which means we've more than tripled our investment. We're on pace to quadruple them on the way up there. We look at our sell orders. The only one that's close to being sold is Helix Energy. And I'm going to take a look at that and see if I really want to keep that one. So we're going to highlight this one and decide if we just want to let this one ride a little bit. AMC has a little bit to go to sell, and Carnival Cruise Lines. And these are more long-term plays when it comes to COVID, but they have the ability to pop really quickly on some good news. So, and then one of the things we look at that especially when you look at Carnival Cruise Lines, it's going to be very, very tied to the vaccine. And considering there's been a slow vaccine rollout, this one's probably going to take a little bit longer to get where it needs to. But when you start to see that, especially the elderly start to get vaccinated, you're going to start to see some big movement. When I was talking to my dad today, he's 83 years old in Ohio, and he said that he's like on like category 1B, which is basically he's 83 years old. He's behind the healthcare workers. But he said in the state of Ohio, 20%, or in the county, the main county in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, is 20% of the people that live there are healthcare workers. So he's like, man, there's a whole lot of people that are ahead of me. He goes, who would have thought I'm 83 years old with, in this age of COVID, and I'm going to have to wait till February to get my vaccination. And so we talked about the fact that he has a place down in Florida. I'm like, Dad, you could drive down to Florida and go into a drive-through and get vaccinated. He's like, I know, don't think I'm not thinking about it. So that is going to have a lot to, have a lot to do with how these particular stocks, AMC, but particularly Carnival, where you're a floating petri dish, basically. And most of the people on those cruises are older people. So, but with that being said, let's look at the ones that are in the red. We always like looking at those. PBF is a little bit down. It's an oil stock, so I'm not touching that one. This one I'm going to let her ride. Next ID does internet security for the Internet of Things. This one is going to pop at some point. Nikola Energy, they've just been hit by a whole bunch of bad news, and they're only down 7%. So this one I expect to go up. These people just are fearless, and they just don't stop. No matter what the bad news is, it seems like they're always going to be putting something out. So we're going to let this one ride as well. Got to have some ones that you got to let ride. I mean, some are pretty easy, and you're going to make money really fast, really, really linearly. Some are, kind of low ball, like they're not going to make a whole lot. And then some, you just got to let them ride. You got to let them ride. Otherwise, you're not having the fun that you need to have. Corsair Gaming, the same thing. They do hardware components for video games. This one, when it pops big. It's a tad bit down, barely under what we bought it for. We bought it for $39.20. It's sitting here almost at $39. We're going to let this one ride as well. AMC is going to pay off later on, we talked about. And then Ashford Hospitality Trust. This is a sister stock to Braemar Resort Trust. They basically have the same management company. And look at the difference in performance. So we expect this one, and I bought this one twice. So our initial one, we bought at like $125. So this one is just absolutely blown up from that initial purchase that we made. I just didn't buy enough of it, so I bought more later at a little bit higher price. But they're basically brother and sister stocks. And when this one goes up, it explodes. So I am letting all these ride. There's none of them that none of the ones that I'm red are concerned about. In fact, they have tremendous, tremendous upside. If I did have to sell one to free up some money, I still think Target Hospitality, we'll see how that goes, but that might be one. And again, they're all close to 0% because we're not going to sell at a big amount and take a capital gain. That's pretty stupid. Plus, we want to keep our cost basis down. Outside of that, I don't really see anything. I'm happy with this portfolio. If I see some that I like, I'll buy some more. Currently, the upside right now, the biggest upsides are Hall of Fame Resorts, which is probably the next one I'll buy. IVR hasn't really gone up a whole lot, so I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm open to it, kind of moving up a little bit more, but we'll see. I'll let somebody take some of the profits to show its momentum if we're going to do that. This company, everything I read is they don't like their management, so I'm not touching that. You never bet on a company with bad management. XAN is one that does commercial real estate, so we're kind of staying away from that right now. Condor it's non-plus. I couldn't care either way. Two Harbors is a good one. Has 75% buy rating. We'll see what happens with that. And MFA, man, I thought this stock was going to be a lot more jumpy, and it just hasn't moved very much the whole time since I bought it. So beyond that, we're down under 2 as an upside, so we're going to leave that one alone. So overall, we're doing pretty good. We are sitting at... All right. So through the magic of editing, for whatever reason, this froze on me. It wouldn't let me click on anything. So again, we're looking at overall, we have a total value of our portfolio after margin of $107,000. And again, this is kind of exactly where we plan to go. Basically, we over tripled our money. We are on pace to get about $290,000, which is basically quintupling our money, and we're on our way to get there. And then let's talk about December. I was doing this report last night just because we got our statement in. And so overall for December, we started off the month at $89,238. We ended December at 101. We gained 13.35%. Nice for 1 month. I mean, that basically is doubling your money over the course of a year, which, sounds great, but we're going to do way better than that. And then overall year end, we basically started off at $33,911.88. In a sense, it's what we just put our money into. And at the end of 2020, that's not even a whole year. That's 9 months. We tripled our money. So realistically, we're on pace to quadruple our money over the course of a year. So excellent year. We have great bigger things happening. And then if we look at trending for tomorrow, the market is still a little bit aftermarket, but basically, it's a little bit too early to tell. We'll take a look at this later tonight. Last night, it was looking really positive, and it was moving up just like we thought we wanted to see it move. It was moving up. I mean, we weren't moving up a whole lot. I think the highest we got was $1,000, but we expect with less uncertainty, things are going to work really well. We're going to start seeing a big gain. And as the vaccine rollout comes out and people start calming down and things start opening up again as we pass the second wave, that's where we're going to make our money. So if you haven't invested, make sure you get money in. The big money is still to be made. So with that being said, I will see you tomorrow.
To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.